Hey there. Today I am going to share with you some really simple breath techniques that can help you regulate your nervous system and help you find a little bit of ease in the body. Even though you're most likely working extra shifts right now, you might be extra anxious about everything that's going on and just be in a state of overdrive. I just want to offer to you a few simple things that you can do right now to help regulate your nervous system. And when I say that, when I refer to that, I'll do a separate series on just the nervous system. But for now, there's two sides: the parasympathetic side of your nervous system and the sympathetic side. The parasympathetic side is that relaxation side, that rest and digest side. You know how when you're on vacation, your whole body is just relaxed, everything's just kind of working out well, your body feels good, your mind feels clear. That's that parasympathetic side of the nervous system kicking in, allowing you to have great digestion and just be able to maybe unplug a little bit from the world. The sympathetic side of your nervous system keeps you hypervigilant. And I know in your professions, you have to be hypervigilant a lot of the time. I get that. Like I said before, I've not been in your shoes. I don't pretend to know exactly what that feels like. But I have been married to someone who has been in your shoes for a long time. So I've experienced it from the spouse side of things, if that's helpful. Today, I want you to be able to take away just a couple simple things that regardless of where you are, you can practice this. And if you practice these things frequently, just maybe like a couple breaths at a time throughout your day, that is more important than you going and taking a class for an hour. If you can practice these small breath techniques little and often throughout your day, that will have a greater impact on your nervous system than anything else I can ask you to do. And if really talking about your breath sounds kind of ridiculous, I'm going to tell you what I tell my husband all the time. If we try to watch a movie where there's like SWAT stuff in there or police stuff, it's just like, it's, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a firefighter and you're watching a movie about fires, you're like, that's not how you do it. You know what I'm talking about. So I'll tell you what I tell him. Let's just suspend your disbelief, okay, for the next like 5 or 10 minutes. Promise? Just hear me out. And then try it yourself. I mean, think about all the times that maybe you notice yourself holding your breath, or maybe you don't, and you just hold your breath a lot and you might not even realize that you're doing it. Notice the times where you sigh heavily, right? Maybe you're in like a roll call or you're in a meeting, one of those things that like could have been an email, and you find yourself sighing like, oh my God. Have you ever heard the expression that a sigh is a silent scream? Yeah, it's like your body needs that release of the breath to help everything work the way it's supposed to work. So I'm going to share with you just a couple really simple things that you can do. If you've been to my classes before, I don't have one on me, but I have give out breath cards, and it's 2 different practices. On one side, it shows circular breathing. On the other side, square breathing. Why? Because circles and squares are really easy to remember. So I would like to share those 2 practices with you today. There's a third practice I want to share with you called alternate nostril breathing, but I'll do a separate video about that one. The most important thing when it comes to connecting with your breath is that when you can take something unconscious and make it conscious, you are suddenly shifting everything in your physiology. So your mind doesn't have to believe really anything I'm about to tell you. All the research says that your body is receiving this instruction. And when you take these deep, slow, controlled breaths, you're doing so much for your body and your physiology that like your belief doesn't have to be there. So that's kind of a nice thing. The other part is if you're able to connect with the breath in a really positive way and help yourself in this way, it helps give you something called a greater heart rate variability. If you're in the military, you might be familiar with this. I know they do this type of testing at certain VA centers. And it's a great predictor for how you'll be in a high stress situation. So heart rate variability is something we'll talk about at another time, but in a nutshell, it's like when you're at rest, your heart rate's down here, or the ideal heart rate is resting. And then as maybe you start jogging, it starts to increase, and it increases to a certain point, and then as you cool down, it starts to dip down, and then as you're at rest again, it dips back down to where it started. So there's this healthy variability in your heart rate. Someone who has a really heightened sympathetic side of the nervous system, someone who is super hypervigilant, stays hypervigilant, and doesn't find that relaxation response, your heart rate variability is not this healthy up and down, right? It's this, it starts here, you run, it just beats faster, and it comes back down, but it's still pretty fast. It never enters back into that restful state. And if that's the case, and you don't have this healthy heart rate variability, there's a good chance that when you're in high stress situations, you're leaning a little bit more toward having an issue physically, maybe mentally getting into that space of tunnel vision. You might find yourself in that space of repeating the same action over and over and not realizing that you're not getting a different result. So again, we'll talk about that another time. But when you're able to give yourself the gift of just taking a couple moments for yourself, trust me, it's really important, and it plays out throughout everything else that you do, like the rest of all the functions in the body. So the first thing I want to show you is circular breathing. And I know, you know what a circle looks like, but I'm just going to put some dots here so you can see. So when I have someone breathe in a circle, okay, what I'm asking you to do is to smooth out your breath. So right now, just for a moment, notice how your breath feels. And if you're like, what are you talking about? Just notice where the breath stays. So as you breathe in, does it stay up here? Like this morning I was watching the news and I could feel my breath here, like getting stuck here. Now I know it's not really stuck here because my lungs are here, but if you feel that tightness and the breath almost feels like it's getting stuck here, maybe you're wearing a lot of gear and you feel like the breath is getting stuck here. It's important, number one, that you're noticing where you feel this tightness and how with the breath and how with, what we're going to be doing, which is circles and squares, okay? It's important that you notice it and then notice the shift that comes when you practice a few rounds of breathing in a different way. So for us in this circular breath, I like to envision that I start at the bottom of the circle, and for your breath in, maybe it's going to be a count of 4 or 5, and for your exhale, it's going to be that same 4 or 5 count. Now to really trigger the relaxation response, you can extend your exhale just a little bit longer. Okay, sometimes it takes a little bit more of your attention, but that's okay. You can practice this yourself. So when you're ready, you'll breathe in, 2, 3, 4. This is kind of turning not into a circle anymore. And as you exhale, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. One more. Breath in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. If you can, keep going. Okay, so if you can extend that exhale for maybe a count of 6, go ahead and do it. So breathing in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So notice how, if you've just done that with me, do you feel how different that breath feels than your typical, unconscious breath? it feels very different. And it takes one breath, truly one mindful breath, to shift everything in the body. Have you ever heard of that saying that slow is smooth and smooth is fast? So if you can slow down the breath and smooth it out, you're going to be more efficient. When you're in that high stress situation and you need that focus, you need more oxygen in the body. You need more oxygen in the cells. You need to help your body as best you can, perform at that optimal level. So allow this really seemingly simple practice to be something that you use when you need it. And trust me when I say this, if you practice it in times where you're not in a stressful situation, maybe you're sitting in your squad car, sitting at the station, sitting wherever you are. You could be home right now, just whatever, waiting in line at Walmart or something, God forbid, right? Let yourself feel what it feels like to experience the breath when you just have a breath that is mindful, and that means you're paying attention to it. It changes everything in the body, and you start to elicit that relaxation response that is so key to not only helping the body relax, but it's also helping to handle symptoms of post-traumatic stress injury. There's some really great research connected to that. In particular, let me see, about a week after a breath regulation practice like this, the study participants in this one really great study had such clinically significant reduction in their PTSD symptoms that the control group just did not have. And guys, listen, it's your breath. It's with you all the time. Hello, right? We didn't have to go to a gym to do it. We didn't have to get a membership anywhere. You breathe all the time. Let's just place your attention, your concentration on it, and you'll be able to experience those benefits. Now, this is the kind of breath that I use to just find that relaxation. Say you find yourself really getting worked up. I know that myself, I've experienced it myself. I know people in my life who've experienced having panic attacks. It's not a good feeling. It comes out of nowhere. It feels very much like it's happening to you and you feel like you don't have control of it. This is a way to help you gain control of what's happening physically in the body. So I call it square breathing. I know Navy SEALs refer to it as box breath. It's basically the same. I just refer to everything as circles and squares because in an instant you can imagine what that looks like, okay? So here's my square. We're gonna think about this in counts of 4, okay? So you're gonna breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. So, it doesn't matter how you draw it. What matters is that you're going to inhale here, hold for 4, exhale here, and hold again. If holding for a count of 4 feels too long, then just change it. Let it be a 3 count. Have it be something that works for you. What happens is when you're experiencing an anxiety attack, you feel like you don't have control of your breath. It might get really quick, really labored, and be really uncomfortable. I know it happened to one of my daughters, and we were in a parking lot about to go into a store, and it was like, okay, how can I help her get a hold of herself right now? Because she feels like, how can I stop this? Square breathing, 99% of the time, I have found, works phenomenally because you're interrupting that breath and you're taking back the control of the body. So you're going to inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Now, Another study where breathwork practices like this were introduced. The study participants all had post-traumatic stress injury. They were Vietnam veterans, and they received a 95% of an increase of how phenomenal they felt as opposed to the control group, which was not using any breath work. So know that, like I said, you don't have to necessarily believe that this is going to work. You might think it sounds a little bit hokey, but I promise you, if you practice this little and often, and you give yourself those moments where you're connecting back with the breath, you will see an overall shift, not only in how you breathe as you go on about your regular day, but you're going to start to notice when the breath doesn't feel right. And that's a huge piece. When you start to really pay attention to the messages from your body, everything starts to change. So if you can notice that you're feeling tightness in the chest and move into a circular breath for a couple rounds, and then go back to what you're doing, you can forget about it again, okay? You don't have to sit there and just do a breath practice all day long. It's going to be enough to shift your awareness, shift your physiology, and help you overall. So I hope you find that helpful. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you to all of you that are working around the clock to help the rest of us. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.